On this week's full-time roundup, Emery Ball is here to stay. Everton keep climbing after their point deduction, and Chelsea forgot there was a game on Wednesday. All of this and much, much more. Full-time roundup starts right now. Hello, beautiful people, as Pat McAfee says. We are back for another midweek prediction / recap show. The Premier League blessed us with a slate midweek, and it was, let's just say it didn't disappoint. There were goals everywhere, drama, so many storylines to draw from. Plus, we had some DFB Pokai, as well as some Copa del Rey action as well that we will cover, and a little bit of Eredivisie midweek action as well. So this is the start of a hectic December and January, and we're going to be here the entire time giving you our thoughts and recapping these games. So stay tuned, because this is when the Premier League and all the other leagues start to heat up here. So first of all, Matthew, my co-host, how are you doing?
Well, Daniel, glad to see, unlike your idol that you mentioned, Pat McAfee, that you're wearing some clothing. Can't understand how that gentleman gets away with that. That's neither here nor there. But you mentioned
you don't like the white beater?
No, I'll get dressed every now and then, especially if I'm going to be on. I know life is tough, but you mentioned life not being tough in the sense that we'll have so much to watch, which is, of course, one of the best times of the year. The festive fixtures are upon us, Daniel, just weeks away. Of course, weather is getting colder, nights are getting longer, and it's just one of those times of the year that gets exciting. And thankfully, there is plenty of football to watch nowadays. And we had a great midweek Premier League lineup, and as well as you mentioned some of those other games. And there really were some games that stood out to me. And of course, we'll have to talk about one in particular that I was pretty upset about yesterday, but we'll get there eventually.
Can't wait to dive into that one. I was chuckling to myself that entire time. But first game on the docket is the first game of the week. Arsenal versus Luton. 4-3 Arsenal in the 97th minute of stoppage time. Wow. Luton hung in there. Any thoughts here?
Luton did hang in there. We've been hearing about how Arsenal, that's what championship teams do. They grind out wins like this. And let me tell you, folks, Luton are at the bottom of the table. Not the bottom, the bottom three, though. And yes, there is definitely a valid point where you got to win these types of games, but you're looking more at teams like Crystal Palace against that, or West Ham or
Chelsea.
Or Chelsea. But when you're talking about Luton, if you're a title team, you should win this game easily. And of course, Declan Rice comes through and absolutely saves the day at the end there for Arsenal. But again, you're looking at a team that battles and finds a way. Too many goals given up. I think there's been a lot of talk about David Raya, and a lot of those goals were on him, and continues to be a thorn in Mikel Arteta's side, the way that's been handled. But they get 3 points, and you kind of move on. And of course, now they sit atop the table, pretty clear. 5 points, I believe, 4 points ahead Liverpool, and 6 points against City. So you have to feel pretty good if you're an Arsenal fan, but there's some things you have to clean up for sure.
Yeah, can't agree more. And I remember an eerily similar type of season from my dear Liverpool. We had, I think, at the end of the season, probably like 5 to 7, maybe even double digits times where we fought back in extra time and won. So also Liverpool drew Luton not so long ago. So I think everyone just goes, lads, it's Luton here. But they've shown a lot of fight. If they stay up with the budget they've had, that manager, in my eyes, should 100% get manager of the year. But I've just been so impressed. I think it's really, too, that comes down to it, is that atmosphere, right? That stadium is not easy to play against. It is right in your face. The fans are right there. It's very intimate, very loud. And it's going to be really interesting. We will preview later, but City do go there. And it's going to be really interesting to see if they're anything, or it's a similar type of game. that we saw against Arsenal. But I did want to say, you mentioned that Rice goal. Man, he's been one of the signings of the season, worth every single penny. One of the few that is worth over 100 million. You kind of scratch your head at some of those flops that we've seen in recent history, but he has been at, I would think, the crux of Arsenal, taking that next step up, and maybe they won't actually bottle it this season. So, congrats to Mikel Arteta and his men. But they probably should, kind of work on that where they're not put in that scenario every single week. But do you think Luton survives?
I don't, unfortunately, especially since, and we'll talk about it later on the show, Everton continue to kind of gain some momentum even without, the 10 points that they lost. And now Luton are back in the bottom 3. So I think it's tough. It depends on how bad Forest get. But you're really looking now at the bottom 3 that are going to stay there. From my perspective, it's going to be really tough for them. And they had some opportunities, like you said, especially in this game and other games as well, to get some points. And you really need those points when you're a bottom table team. And I just don't think they get it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And kind of rotating to probably the game of the midweek slate here. Villa versus City. That is 14 straight home wins for Villa. 4 matches without a win for Manchester City. What were you kind of surprised by this result, or kind of what were you thinking when you were watching this?
I mean, we've talked about how good Villa are this year. Unai Emery's, clearly one of the better managers in the league, and we saw that even in Spanish league, what he did with the Yellow Submarine at Villarreal was fantastic too. After his time at Arsenal, you wonder what happened with that Arsenal stint when he was there, whether that was management or he just couldn't get the right players in, and that was a weird time for Arsenal as well, with a lot of turnover there. So, yes, I'm surprised that City continue to not play up to City standards, but I also, I'm a little worried, but not too worried, as they were in the same place last year. They kind of spotted Arsenal 6 points or 5 points at this point in the season, I think it was, and they still found a way. Is it the same team as last year? I don't think so, but I still think they're okay. And again, going to Villa is a tough place. You mentioned the 14 straight wins, so not an easy place to go and play. Any road game in the Premier League, as we just alluded to with Arsenal going to Luton, is a tough place. Add that they're a good squad in form. It was always going to be a tough ask.
Yeah, and is how far can Arsenal and Liverpool and co get ahead or kind of scrap it out with City before they kind of go on their run in January in 2024. That's kind of when City, I feel like, start really purring and turn it on, and that's when they'll probably get healthy as well. So definitely going to be interesting to look back at these conversations once. Once
how many points can they drop, Daniel, though? Like, what's the maximum at this point that City can kind of spot the rest of the league? I mean, we all know what they can do. You mentioned their runs, but like, are they going to continue that? Is that just the norm for City, or can that run out at some point?
I mean, it definitely could. They do have a thin squad, I will say. They have the thinnest squad I think they've ever had under Pep. Now, is the quality in the squad fantastic? Yes. But it's going to be really interesting. The coaches have now kind of figured out how to play against Pep. And, Villa went out there next, too. It wasn't any sitting back counterattack football. They were dominating the game in the second half. And credit to Villa Park. Man, those fans were loud as hell. And they were wanting Villa to go for the kill. They were not satisfied with the point, which is really good to see. And you mentioned about Emery with Arsenal. I actually did some research on this, and from kind of the vibe I got was that Emery, paired with a really good technical director, has a lot of say in the player personnel, and I don't think he got that at Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal were willing to hand over all the reins to him. And I mean, he came in there and has completely taken over almost player personnel, and you see the likes of Moussa Diaby, Tielemans, Torres, just to name a few, that have come into the squad and have completely elevated these guys. And now they're in 4th place. And not to pat myself on the back, I did predict them to be in 4th.
Third.
They are
third place.
Or third, sorry. But top 4 was like my safe bet. And I think they are think they're well ahead of that, and they do have a match against City at Villa Park. Could they make it 15? We'll let you know later on in the show. But man, Douglas Luiz, ex-City player, turned it on. I mean, he hit the post late too to make it even more of a convincing win. But there's been a lot of rumors about Arsenal and other good teams kind of scouting him, and his price tag keeps going up, kind of like he might have that Rice price tag by the end of the season. I could see it.
Yeah, I would say the one difference between Rice last year and a team like Villa, no discredit to West Ham. Of course, they've had years where they were a dominant team as well. But Villa are a notoriously big squad in English football. So if Unai Emery can get that squad up to par on the pitch, I don't know if they start selling players, to be honest. Of course, unless someone comes and offers ridiculous money, but. Again, just for historical context, Villa is and was one of those big clubs throughout the course of English history. So keep an eye on that. And it's a great story, especially if Unai Emery can turn it around and continue building on the success. Maybe they go to Europe and get something done next year as well. But another manager, Daniel, just to kind of take it to a game that happened today on Thursday, that is kind of coming in. And you mentioned Unai Emery having a lot of control over the players, of course, is Ange Postecoglou, who's come in and really turned things around at Spurs, at least at the start of the season. But it seems like this style that Ange wants to play with the high press and that high line is starting to get tested as they go down and have a I don't know if you want to call it a disappointing loss, but they lose to West Ham after going up 1-0 in the first half.
Yeah, we called this out, after big wins kind of, or big ties at least, like an emotional game. Usually sometimes there is a little fall back to earth the next game, and we kind of saw this take place. Now, they did go up early with the Cuti Romero goal. Good to have him back for sure to help that back line. But, West Ham did come up with some answers. It seems like those signings that West Ham did with Kudus, Alvarez and James Ward-Prowse.
James Ward-Prowse.
What a guy.
Let me tell you something. How does this guy only play for Southampton and now West Ham, Daniel? I don't understand. I don't get it. He doesn't get called up to England either. Criminally underrated.
He is. And he's one of those players that you'll look back probably in 10 years and be like, man, he should have got a lot more plaudits. He carried, that Southampton team for a long time. And I feel like the big teams did scout him, but for some reason, there's just this thing with him. And he seems like a good bloke, as they say in England. And I don't really understand his leadership. He's got it all. So I don't really understand. But I feel like West Ham was a decent club. He finally gets that European football itch I'm sure he's wanted. And it is an absolute atrocity how Southgate refuses to, call Calvin Phillips up over him, who gets 0 minutes, even when everybody's injured. So I think that's pretty shameful from Southgate. But as long as our show are giving him credit, I think that's really all that matters.
That's all that matters. That's
exactly.
But he's listening, of course, after a big win, and he's going to get all the flowers he gets from us. And I do want to ask you, though, as well, like, where do you think Spurs fall now that we've seen kind of what this style is and how Big Ange wants to play? And of course, it's still early in his tenure in the Premier League, but he's been very adamant and vocal about not wanting to change his style. If he is that way, because we're going to see more games like this for Spurs in the future if they continue to play this way. If he doesn't change, where do they end up on the table, and just how good is this team at this point? Especially, of course, factor in all the injuries that we've talked about.
Well, I happened to take a good look at this table before, and they're in fifth now with 27 points, and I'm going to name the team they just played, West Ham, at ninth. There's 3 points separating them from ninth right now. So you got behind them United, Newcastle, Brighton, and West Ham. Now, to be fair, Man United is just United. You never know what you're going to get. Newcastle are really banged up, which we'll talk about in a second. And then Brighton as well. Still play pretty football, but they are injury prone as well right now. So I mentioned how this next, upcoming month or two is going to be pivotal for the Premier League and how it shakes out. It's really up to Tottenham, Newcastle, and Brighton to kind of dog it out. And then you never know what's going to happen with United. They could easily end up in 8th place by January. Now, I'm not saying that will happen. I still think Ange is a great coach and they'll figure it out. And if they can get, shore up that back line, they'll probably be okay. We're also forgetting, you can make signings in January. So it depends on who really goes and gets players in the January market as well. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the darlings to start the season could kind of fall back down to earth. But either way, I think Spurs fans should just be excited for the project because this is a project. Let's not forget. You just sold your best player this summer. So I do think they need some investment, and I think they will go invest in January, and that could help them out. But it's not out of the realm of the possibility to think they could keep falling down.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, I think I saw a stat recently, and maybe this factored in today as well. I don't know if it accounted for it. They've dropped 14 points from leading position this year. And so they go out, and we saw it again. We saw it against City. We saw it today where they get that opening goal, and then they continue that same style. Not that, you don't have to play 45 minutes defensive football like they used to do. I think that would drive people crazy, especially just not the way Ange is or what he wants to do. But I think you have to make adjustments during the game. You have to kill off 15, 20-minute sections of a game defensively and change your style. They were up 1-0 and they were still showing, I think it was every player on the midfield line for Tottenham. That's got to change at some point. And he'll learn. I think he'll have to learn, or if he doesn't, it's going to be either a short-lived tenure, which was a lot of fun, but there's a balance, and I think he's just got to find that. And I do think he will. He seemed like he's got his head on the shoulders and willing to learn and adapt a little bit, but still wants to play his style, similar to what, Marcelo Bielsa, although maybe not a great example since he's not in the league anymore, but, similar type of thinking. I want to focus on my style. But let's also be a little bit more adaptive. And there's other guys, Daniel, that are doing it right now as well in the league. Areola at Bournemouth, his style is absolutely clicking for that squad right now, and they continue to move up the table. They've been, one of the nicer stories. Of course, they're still towards the bottom in 15th, but it's a squad that at the beginning of the season, you were not expecting to do this well, especially given when he came in and took over.
Yeah, I was hoping that they would do well, and the first, couple months was rough, but it seems like the ideas and the belief in his style of play has kind of really set in. And I mean, Tyler Adams hasn't even played a single minute of football yet, which is one of their biggest signings in the offseason, and he'll be back in February. So, I mean, Dom Solanke, ex-Chelsea, ex-Liverpool player, has scored, I think, 8 or 9 goals on the season. He's going to hit double digits more than likely. And they have some really good pieces there. I always have loved Philip Billing in that heart of the midfield. So I do see them skyrocket up to more mid-table by the end of January. Now, I could be very wrong on that, but it seems like they're trending in an upwards trajectory, and the teams around them are trending down. So I am feeling pretty good about where Bournemouth are at, and it seems like their manager is kind of gained confidence in his players, and they're playing the ball that he really wants to. Now to kind of talk about a new manager, Chris Wilder took over Sheffield United. First game back, was a little bit worried, just based off, the new manager bounce. And Sheffield, credit to them, they did play well. They did lose 2-0, but it was 1-0 all the way up to the last, almost the last kick of the game. But these are kind of the teams that Liverpool sometimes trip over, right? And, Trent was cheeked up on that sideline and had a nice little assist to Verge. But then you did see, Joel Matip more than likely, end his season and probably his career with Liverpool, as he's a free agent in the offseason. And that really sucks. He's been a great steward of the club for 8 years now. You got him on a free from Schalke. One of the more underrated signings I think we've had. I think him and, James Milner could be a shout there. But, hey, we have Gerald Kwanzaa. We have Joe Gomez. We have Ibrahim Konate. So I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool look in January now for a center back. But I think we're going to be okay. And, the Wilder type of Sheffield did look better. But, set pieces continue to haunt them, and that's been their main issue. And, what did they do? Concede another set piece, and it could have been more. So, do you have any comments on this match?
Yeah, of course. We wish Joel Matip a speedy recovery. It was confirmed he ruptured his ACL after the match.
Ruptured such an aggressive term.
I know it really is. But you wish him the best. Of course, you mentioned his service to the club. I'm not a huge fan, but you recognize players of that quality and respect them at that level. So yeah, he was a great steward for the game for your team, and hopefully he can come back and probably not play at Liverpool, but it'll be interesting to just see where he lands. And it's one of those things, short period of time, but definitely Sheffield looked much better under Chris Wilder, looked like the old Sheffield that they were. And so that'll be interesting. Of course, they've been in the Premier League a few seasons prior to their demotion. And of course, Higginbottom. Higginbottom brought them up. But, Chris Wilder was a beloved steward. Speaking of stewards of the club, they loved him there as the fans and weren't really ready to see him get fired when he did. So good to see him back, and it'll be interesting if they can get that manager bounce to see what happens for them going forward. But it'll be tough regardless to stay up this season.
Yeah, and I don't see. I think they're going to be dead last in the Premier League, and I mean you can't really even blame Higginbottom. I mean they gave him absolutely nothing to work with in the summer, so. I'm sure he's going to get a pretty good championship job when all this shakes out. But speaking of another team that
we got plenty. We had plenty. Unlike Higginbottom,
football,
we have plenty.
I know the team that's playing better football this week was Man U versus Chelsea, and boy did they release a little hurting on Chelsea completely. I think it was almost 30 shots on target, an XG of almost 3 to 4. What a dismal display by your Blues. Please share us some insights on this game.
That was childish football. That's what that was. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I talked about we needed to be consistent and set a standard after Man City. Of course, we then went out and laid a goose egg against Newcastle and then come back with a win against Brighton. That was half-hearted performance and somehow found 3 points. It's inconsistency with this squad. You kind of expect it from a young squad a little bit. But at some point they need to grow up and they need to be consistent. They need to find form. They need to find a set of standards that they want to live up to. Poach has a huge task ahead of him. This is by no means a small job. He cannot find 11. He can't find one guy. No, he can't find 10 guys. He can find one guy who knows what he's doing and feels comfortable. And that's Thiago Silva, because he's done it for 50 years. He cannot, other than Thiago, he cannot find a player that he can trust and that he knows what he's going to get in, week in, week out at that position. And it's a really tough place to be a manager when you're trying to put a lineup together like that. It didn't look right. The team couldn't pass the ball out of the back. Basically, I would say 60% of the game was Robert Sanchez passing to Thiago Silva, who would pass it across to Disessi, who would pass it back to Robert Sanchez, and then he would boot it to the halfway line, and United would win the second header, and then it come and attack. Hence why they had 30 shots. And so, of course, United are United, and they gave up an opportunity, so we went into the half square. But that game was pitiful from start to finish, and from a Chelsea perspective, and they just need to be better. I mean, there's really no other way of putting it. Manchester United looked like a Champions League squad again, and that's all you need to say. I mean, Chelsea made Man United, who we all have been talking about and bashing and saying how awful they are, they made them look like superstars. And that there really is nothing else that I can say about Chelsea other than that, because that really should sum it up for everyone else. United, we can talk about United and the way that they kind of came out of things, but from a Chelsea perspective, that was really disappointing.
Is this a bury the tape kind of game and just move on, or do you?
I don't think any game is bury the tape for this squad, to be honest. They're not at a point where they have a way of playing or that they can say this is what we can revert back to. So I think it's all a learning opportunity for them. I hope it is, because that was there were moments where it just looked disconnected. You could see how much separation was between Cole Palmer and Enzo from the defense. And so finally at one point, Cole Palmer comes back on the goal kick and gives them an out, and they moved up the field a little bit. Caicedo was a little bit lost in kind of where his positioning was. So it's a lot of technical things that the manager needs to discuss with the team. And of course, in a festive fixture right now, you're not going to get much practice time. So
Nope.
It's going to be an interesting, the development here the next couple of weeks for Chelsea, who just looked abysmal.
Yeah, there was two kind of points I kind of had in my head. Number one was that report about Ten Hag and the, I guess, technically false reports came out. Don't think that could have came at a better time. It seemed like they played with some fire.
Funny how that works, right?
Right, yeah. So nothing like getting your squad motivated after some bullshit reports come out like that. So, they seemed like they were ready to play for their manager, and boy, did they did. Now, the one thing I will say before we move on is I was looking at that Chelsea lineup, and you got, almost $100 million, maybe plus with Caicedo. You got Enzo Fernandez, who you spent probably the same amount. Yep. And then you have Cole Palmer as your midfield. And you're telling me you cannot control the midfield against McTominay, Amrabat, and who else? Oh, Bruno. That is pretty sorry. So,
yeah, and you mentioned it earlier with Declan Rice, of course, right? Money well spent for every penny, and it's true. And I talked to somebody about this the other day, a friend of mine. We paid for the future at a premium versus what those players were actually probably valued at and should have been valued at. Declan Rice has been around the block when he got transferred for $100 million. He's been at West Ham. He played for England. He played in Europe. He's had multiple seasons at West Ham. It wasn't like he was an unknown youngster. And to pay $105 million for 105 million pounds, maybe, or it was either way, for Caicedo, who had one good season at Brighton. Granted, it was a great season, but he's still 21, 22 years old, trying to figure it out. Enzo Fernandez, nobody knew about until the World Cup, which he was playing alongside the greatest player of all time. So, it doesn't add up the way that we position the squad. And there's, that's down to a lot of factors, management and the ownership not knowing, and a whole host of things that we don't have time for tonight. But Chelsea needs to get right, and they need to figure it out fast, because these players need to develop, and they need to deliver what they've been paid to deliver. Otherwise, this is going to be a problem for a very, very long time with the contracts that they've signed up for.
Yep. And just a real quick, we just wanted to kind of hit you guys with a manager carousel here. Dyche Ball, a huge 3-0 win against Newcastle today. Newcastle are banged up, but Everton, since those FFP charges seems like they just started trying, to be honest. And Dyche Ball's in full effect, so that's good to see. I do think they'll survive if things keep trending in their direction. And I've been very impressed. And to beat Newcastle, who are pretty tight at the back, 3-0, the goals have always been the problem, and the goals were free-flowing today. So I wanted to mention that. Another just quick mention, Hodgson. Hot seat?
Like deathbed almost.
He is getting up
either
there.
One is, he's like 81 years old. Well, hopefully I have a long way to go.
No, absolutely.
Roy Hodgson's not going anywhere. I mean, Crystal Palace.
You don't think so?
No, because they tried it with Patrick Vieira, who was a good manager, and they didn't give him the time. And Roy always just seems to come back in and waddle along the sideline and make his, presence known at 80 something. I think he's, well up there. It's just one of those things for me with Crystal Palace. They're one of those stuck in what they want to be type of teams, and they continue to be 13 to 15 year in, year out for that reason.
Hear me out. Sam Allardyce.
He went Scottish to Italian.
I did. So just hear me out there. That could be one of those shocks that they start really, and they got Liverpool, this weekend.
They're still clear though of the bottom, which is why I just don't
know.
Yeah.
I think Nottingham Forest have been bad, other teams.
He's on the hot seat. He's definitely on the hot seat.
So we'll see. Yeah, so we hit on Cooper. I think he'll right the ship. They had a kind of a blip like this last year, and they ended up being fine. So I do rate Cooper as a manager, and I think he'll be okay. He doesn't have as many excuses as he did last year with 21 new players getting in. He has some continuity this year, so it'll be interesting to see. And last but not least, Vincent Kompany. I think they're going to stick with him, but his seat remains simmering, I'd say, as they can only beat the teams that are really bad about them. And it's seeming like it's going to be another yo-yo year for Burnley. So as you know, we talk about managers who are on the hot seat. I'll tell you one that's not on the hot seat. Saarbrücken. Not only did they
Not
beat
the name.
Bayern,
He's not the name. That's the team that he's talking
that is
about.
the team.
Folks.
Thank you. And I don't even have the gaffer's name, so that's my fault. But they did beat Bayern in the Polkai a couple weeks back, and they went ahead and beat another top Bundesliga team in the Polkai. So their dream continues, and you love to see it. You love to see it. And I mean, I'm sure that guy will get a pretty big raise. You know, when it's all said and done. I
wonder when they don't play at home though. That's got to help them a little bit because they played Bayern at home,
no doubt,
and Frankfurt at home in this one. They got to go on the road, right? They're one of the worst teams in the tournament.
I'm not really sure how seeding works. I wish I could have brought that insight, but I'm not sure. But just wanted to give them a shout out, as you know,
very impressive. Regardless,
all the cup, always the cup, as our friends at Charlotte Soccer Show say. Just to quickly recap a couple other Polkai games. Leverkusen, you know, they have a pretty solid win. Again, I think they're going to that'll be their silverware probably is the Polkai. And then we have Stuttgart absolutely owning Dortmund again. Saw that a couple weeks ago. Same shit, different day. Garassi and Unda played up top again. So that'll be an interesting, I think Stuttgart and Leverkusen would be the ideal final that I'd like to see. Because both of those teams have kind of been a big surprise this season, and let them duke it out for the silverware. But there's still a long ways to go.
Yeah, and you know there'll be some funky team as always in the cups. There's one that kind of spoils the party at the end. But man, Bayer Leverkusen, they don't lose. They don't lose this year.
They do not. That is correct. And the jump to the Copa del Rey, Girona,
they also don't lose. Yeah,
they don't, but stop me if you heard this again, or if I've, just repeating myself. They go down 2-0, and then they end up winning 5-2. I just don't understand how you do that. It's like all the time. It's not just once. It's not just twice. This is like 5 times this season where they've gone down either 1 or 2 goals and have ended up having a super convincing win. Christian Stuani scores again. So his, remontada, you could say, at 36 years old, is going splendidly. And then also wanted to hit on, a little bit Eredivisie. We mentioned Ajax had a game to finish up. They are now in 6th place. So now it's going to be interesting if their race to get silverware. They do have a big hole that they dug, so they have a lot of points that they're going to have to make up. But I do think that with this current squad and how the manager is coaching them, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like you said,
it would be important if they got and it would be big if they somehow got some silverware out of this year. I don't know where they'd get it, but they could get it, and it would be interesting to see.
I believe they got knocked out of the Eredivisie competition, but I honestly haven't paid too much attention to that, so I can't confidently say that. But speaking of another Eredivisie team, PSV, Feyenoord, continue to win. So PSV looks like they're done and dusted, but Feyenoord will probably be a close second, and it'll be interesting to see if AZ Alkmaar fits in that third, or if Ajax can sneak into that 4th position and, maybe get some European football and save their finances a little bit. Now, I
told you, give them the trophy already after that Feyenoord game.
I know. And you're right. You're right. You did say they were going to kill Feyenoord, which was
I did,
incorrect.
but they still take the trophy either way.
That is true. That is true. And we're going to take a quick break here, and on the other side of the show, we'll have a bunch of predictions. There's pretty good slate this weekend, as well as my best bets that have started to heat up as of late. So we will get back. Just a reminder, please follow the Twitter at Fulltime Roundup. Follow my co-host Matthew at Life of Gesslin. Follow me at Liverpool CLTFC. Please like, rate, download, re-download, and interact with us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love any feedback or anything that we're not hitting that's on your radar. Please let us know. So we'll get back with you in just a second. And we're back. this is the prediction side. So gonna dive into around roughly 10 games that we're gonna predict how the outcomes happen. Then we'll hit the best bets. So starting off the slate, we mentioned Villa with their big win against Manchester City, 14 wins, gunning for 15 wins. And who do they have to gun for? The Gunners themselves. This is going to be a really interesting game just to see if Villa is actually like that. And if they beat or get a draw from City and Arsenal within 2 games, boy, are they going to be very happy. How do you think this match shakes out?
That'd be some week if they pull that off. Boy. 1-1. I say they get a point out of it. I do say they get a point. David Raya will start. He'll make some type of blunder, whether that's an actual, cost the goal or something that happens from the goal that happens from that. So, yeah, give me 1-1. But I do think Arsenal find a way to end the winning streak at Villa.
This will be probably the game of the week, honestly, for me at least. I think there will be goals galore. I'm going to say 2-2. I'm agree with you with the draw here. Arsenal, Villa, great form. Aston Villa, off an emotional win. I think they do kind of come back to earth a little bit here with the draw. Next, Battle of the Mid, Part 1. Spurs, banged up. Newcastle banged up. Both teams off a loss. How do you think this match shakes out?
Spurs at home. This would be 4 in a row at home if they lose this one, which would be unheard of really for Spurs, especially given how long it's been since they lost 3 at home. I think Ange finds a way. Newcastle are really banged up right now. They found a way early against a really poor Chelsea team. And then, a team in the Champions League and PSG that we just never really knew what you expect. But Spurs are solid. I think they're at home, like I said, 2-1 Spurs.
I'm going to give the Spurs the edge here. I think Ange is a charismatic manager, and that's what's going to keep his team ticking, and they're going to have a nice bounce-back win here. So I'm going to go 3-2. I think there will be goals galore here as well. To kind of jump into Spain here, the Yellow Submarine versus Real Sociedad. Real Sociedad still kind of gunning for a top 5 spot here. How do you think this match shakes out?
Real at home. Both teams are in really good form right now, winning 3 of the last 5 and not dropping to a loss in the last 5. So good matchup here. The home, it's at home though. I do agree with you. Real Sociedad are a really solid team. 1-1. I'll go another draw. God, eventually I'll have a win in this group. But
I'm going to have 2-1 Real Sociedad with the edge. I do think it could be an interesting, dramatic late finish, but I think Real Sociedad will see the game out. Another really interesting game, probably the best game on the slate for the Spanish league, Barcelona, Girona. Who takes points from this?
Definitely the biggest game of the week in La Liga. Barcelona need this one more than anything. Of course, they do get the big win against Atleti on the weekend and then advance in the Champions League against Porto recently as well. So they're finding some form. We've talked about them and just kind of that way that Xavi's settled things down after a little bit of a shaky start after the injuries that caught up with them. Girona, though, you talked about they go down and they continue to find ways.
They can't do that against Barca.
But Barca does the same thing is the problem.
That is true. They cancel out. 2 wrongs don't make a right.
They don't make a right. 2-0 Barca. I think you saw Girona go up against Real Madrid and have a rude awakening in that matchup. I think you see the cream rise to the crop here, and Barca gets the win.
Both play very attractive styles of football, but I think, after seeing how Real Madrid dealt with Girona, I think that Barcelona win rather comfortably with a 3-1 win.
I think Louis gets a goal here, by the way, too, just to point that out.
He needs a goal for sure. To jump over to the Bundesliga, probably the best match for me, at least, of the Bundesliga slate. There are some good ones though. Stuttgart versus Leverkusen, 2 really hot teams, 2 great managers. How's this going to shake out?
I'll give you the way I think it's going to shake out, and I'll also give you the importance of it. I think this is a draw. And I think this is one of those matchups that we've talked about in the Bundesliga where the squads beat each other up and make it too easy for Bayern. I think they're both good squads. And it's not a fault to Leverkusen by not losing. They'll still get a point here, but that would be 2 draws in a row. And they start to lose that separation with Bayern. That just seems to happen year in, year out. But it's a good match. Guirassy will probably score. Grimaldo will probably get a ridiculous free kick goal, as we've been talking about. So give me 2-2. I'll go 2-2.
I'm going to go 1-1, but I'll agree.
I thought about it for a second.
I think 1-1. I think both defenses are pretty solid, so I don't think this will be. I don't know. Actually, no, I take that back. I think that. I do think. I don't know why I just said it won't be a goals galore. I think there will be goals here, with all that firepower. Oh shit! I don't want to agree with you, because it's boring. But I'm going to go 2-2 as well. Let's see here. Barca. Or it's not Barca, Jesus. Frankfurt versus Bayern. Is Frankfurt's been in good form. They did just lose to Saarbrücken. So I don't know if that's going to motivate them or if it's going to, mean anything here. But Bayern didn't play midweek, so they're going to be rested up here after not
didn't play last
very
weekend
well.
Either.
Yep, so they're going to be, I think, Bayern lay the wood here. And
you can't see me, but I'm waving my hands at Daniel as if to move on from this one. This is 3-0 Bayern, very simply.
3-0.
Move on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I like that. And then Battle of Mid Part 2, probably the biggest Battle of Mid I've seen. Dortmund, Leipzig. What do you think?
I hate when you throw Dortmund on here because I never know what Dortmund I'm going to get. You do.
Well, so is Leipzig. Leipzig's the same thing too.
Same exact thing. 3-2 Leipzig. I have no reason why. I just think 3-2. I know there's going to be goals. Both teams can't defend worth a shit. And I think that Leipzig and Xavi Simons finds a way to give them the edge. 3-2. Same
score, just reverse it. I think Dortmund.
Wow.
The yellow wall.
Wow. I didn't
somehow,
think about that.
It's one of these games where you think Leipzig might win, and then as soon as you think Dortmund's going to lose, they're going to win. And whenever you favor Dortmund, they're going to lose. So I'm just going to reverse jinx myself and go ahead and pick Dortmund here. To move to Serie A, Atalanta, AC Milan. Oh boy, Rafa Leao's a doubt, but they didn't really need him last week because Rebic just kind of jumped on the scene now. Luka Jovic. No, was he? I don't even know. But anyways, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 1-1 draw.
I love how you put the high scoring games in
first.
Serie A first for me, because we'll get to Daniel always finds a nap game for me. He didn't disappoint this weekend. Atalanta will score. They have very good offensive players. We've talked about them before. AC Milan has a little too much. I think 3-2 in this one as well. So AC Milan 3-2. Yeah,
goals galore here.
We're
both loving it. So Juventus, big matchup against Napoli. Napoli's happy, manager balance has kind of come to an end. Are they going to bounce back against, this might be a nap game for you too, the way Allegri plays, but how do you think this one ends up?
Yeah, I actually like Napoli in this one. I'll take 1-0 Napoli, even though, to your point, the bounce has ended, but there's still some good talent on that squad, and you never know what you're going to get from Allegri and Juventus. So give me 1-0.
Yeah, Osimhen's back, which helps a lot.
He'll be fired up.
I'm going to give Napoli the edge here as well, just because Juventus just get a 1-0 lead and then just defend, and they can't do that against Napoli. I don't think that's going to work out for them well. So I'm going to say 2-1 Napoli. Your nap game, we can hit this quick. Roma vs Fiorentina. What do you think?
0-0 with a potential 1-0 win for Roma as Jose's special. And there you go. You've had it. I will be sleeping for 98% of this matchup.
It will be a Roma. I think I could even see him getting sent off, late.
More than likely.
Absolutely berating a referee. I'm going to say 1-0 Roma.
We love you, Josie. Never change. Never change. Except when you follow referees inside and kind of harass them. That's not cool. But all right, to switch back to France. Sorry, my Sophie was tweaking out. Monaco versus Rennes. Probably the best, really the only game that interests me in the French league. Monaco are still kind of gunning for Bayern, for PSG. Rennes are kind of back in good form. Goals galore or a boring match for you? I think there's some goals here. I think Monaco needed, of course. If they don't get it, the league's pretty much over, in my opinion. It's probably already over anyway. But Rennes are bad. I know they've been playing better, but they're just not good this year. Monaco 3-1. Florian Balogun gets a brace.
Wow. I like that. I like a Balogun goal. I'm going to say 3-2. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think there will be a lot of goals. And for, our home country here in the U.S., MLS final at Columbus Crew versus LAFC. What's your lean here, I guess?
I don't know how Columbus is the higher seed here, to be honest, but
it was because of the conference finish. Columbus was second, and I think LAFC fell to third.
I'll take LAFC. They're the standard of the league right now.
And, God damn it, Matt! Why'd you do that? That's not cool.
You let me go first. So yeah, LAFC is going to win their second consecutive MLS Cup. I do think it won't be as dramatic as last year's. As I don't know if anything can really top that. 2-0 though, LAFC. Columbus though will surprise, but
I'm gonna say Columbus. I do have a feature on LAFC. I will probably have to hedge that now that.
I see now. I got it.
Not happy about that. Not cool. It's 3-1. Had it all season. Not very happy with you right now. But speaking of betting, we are now into my favorite part of the show, my best bets. I'm going to do a quick review for the last 2 weeks because I've been bad about recapping. I'm now 37, 26, and 9 in best bets. That's a 70% win rate. Pretty damn good if I don't say so myself. For parlays, 8 and 14, hitting at 57% clip. Not bad either when you consider it's a parlay. Plus 28.25 units, and we were up 3 units last week. I gave a couple plays midweek, so I'm going to recap those real quick. So last weekend, our parlay did not hit because of City. We had everyone we wanted other than City hit, so that was kind of a bummer. And then, City Spurs over 3.5 cashed. Bayern, Dortmund over 3.5 did not. That was a shame. Valencia, Girona, last second cash. Gotta love it. Chelsea, Brighton over 3 was an easy cash. And then midweek, I had Chelsea, Man U over 3, which was a push. Villa City over 3, which somehow did not go over. Couldn't believe it. I mean, post, good chances. Both keepers had insane games. And then Marseille, Lyon over 2.5 was a cash. Thank you to Marseille for scoring all 3 of those goals. For this weekend, I do have a parlay. Risk 1 unit, Liverpool, Bayern, Inter, PSG, and Manchester City. I don't see how any of these teams lose, so I'm not really worried about it. For the best bets, Villa, Arsenal over 3 here. I love this. This is probably one of my favorites here. So I don't even think. Enjoy the game of the week and also have money on the over. So when the goals fly, you'll be happy. Over 3.5 and PSG, not. PSG, I think, are just going to have their way with not might get one because of the backup goalkeeper, plus the defending situation. PSG is not ideal. Over 3.5, City Luton. City's going to be really pissed off in this match, and I think they have their way with Luton. Luton will probably get 1 goal just because it's Luton at home. So I think this will be a no sweat. Leverkusen for Stuttgart over 3.5. I liked your over prediction there. Hopefully it doesn't. It is your fault if this one loses.
100% naturally.
And over 3.5, and then over 3.5. Burnley are atrocious defensively. Brighton love to score, and Brighton's defending situation. I don't know if you saw, but they started a 18-year-old center mid at right back, and they started Pascal Gross at left back. So that's just to sum up Brighton's defensive situation right now. Not ideal. So we got 5 straight bets, 1 parlay for you. Kind of on a hot streak, 28 units for the season. So go ahead and close your eyes and take these bets and enjoy Saturday and Sunday. And I don't think there'll be much sweating. I'm still waiting for my perfect sweep. It'd be really nice to sweep this week. I'd really appreciate these teams kind of stepping up here. But don't worry, we all got it. And can't wait to recap these on Sunday/Monday. Matt, as always, it's been a pleasure. If we end up watching games, I will show up this time. And hope you guys all have a great weekend and enjoy the games.